Germination is a professional development project for early childhood educators, emerging artists and musicians. Through playful workshops, work-based experiences, and with the support of a mentor, Magic Acorns has been learning about how we can support and nurture creative practitioners in musical play. In this episode, Dr. Jessica Pitt talks to early childhood educator Hope Watson about developing their practice of musical play.
In this episode, I am delighted to be joined by Hope Watson, one of the Germination mentees. Can you tell us a bit about where you work then? Just a bit of detail.
Yeah, I work in an outdoor nursery, so it's set in a walled garden. It's massive. It's amazing.
Wow.
All the children are outside all day, except for when they're in the teepee or the yurt, which is like some nice indoor spaces we've got set up. And sometimes I'll go on forest school or forest walks, so spending the day out in the woods, which is really nice for them as well.
So, what are your passions in your work? What really excites you when you're working in nursery?
I think just seeing the children be themselves. They're really funny little people.
Yeah.
And really smart, they really come out of their shells in the right situations, and watching them kind of develop and become themselves is just nice. Learning who they are as people, and without the judgment of the world and school and things like that. They're just allowed to be themselves.
Yeah,
it's really nice.
So why did you, what attracted you to getting involved in the Germination project?
I think just before I found out about it, I'd been given the bandstand space to run and organise and plan for. And it's basically this big, it's not that big. It's like a shelter with an organ in it, which is really cool.
Wow.
And I kind of thought, I'd really like to see more music in the setting, because I've always just loved music forever. So I thought it'd be really nice to see that, and I'd be given that. And then my manager came to me and was like, there's this project that you'd be interested in. And I was like, yes. I would be interested in that. Thank you. So I just think I was looking for some inspiration and just to learn more about music in early years specifically, because I never really kind of linked the two.
So, when you say music's been important to you in your life, can you say a bit more about that? In what way have you been?
Yeah, I've always been in school choirs, and I've studied music in GCSE, and I did music tech in A level, and I've played lots of instruments, and I just really like music, just as a general interest. Yeah.
But it's funny that you didn't join it up to your practice as a early childhood teacher.
No, and actually I was thinking about it. I was thinking there's got to be some way I can link the two, because when I found early years as a career option, I was like, wow, I really like this. Can you imagine if I could do music at the same time? And then, this project came up, and I got given a bandstand, and it was all coming together.
Wow, all the stars aligning.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's so lovely. So, you sounded like an attractive project, and you wanted to get involved. In what way has it kind of met your expectations, or what were your expectations, or how has it been, in terms of what you thought it might be?
I kind of thought it might be more about music, as in just singing and nursery rhymes and that basic kind of instrument playing. But I quite liked that it was more based on sound, and not just sound, but movement to sound, and vocal sound and speaking, and micro songs we learned about and things like that. I found that really interesting. I thought it would be more, your basic, when you think of music in early years, you think of just nursery rhymes and maybe bashing a few drums.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting to find out about that side of things more.
Yeah. And if you were have you sort of talked to your colleagues at work about it, and how have you explained it, what you've been doing?
It's been interesting to say that I've been going for play days.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're kind of you're going to play somewhere, and they're like, yeah, that's basically what we're doing. I've been explaining a little bit about the separate activities we've been doing. And I think I'm going to have to do a bit of a presentation just to like catch everyone up on it all. I find it quite hard to explain, really. I feel it's one of those things you kind of have to be there to get
Don't you? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, just before you came on, Sophie and I were listening to do you remember we did the thing in 3 parts? And we were sort of standing, and the leaders were kind of standing close together, and we were divided into 3, and we were...
Yes, yeah.
You know, when Sophie played that music back, I just couldn't believe we'd created that, because you're so focused on what you're doing in the moment, you don't hear the rest of what's going on, and it's just
absolutely.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, one of my favourites was the singing in the stairwell. I think I'm just really happy I got to experience that, because I don't think I ever would have otherwise. Just to stand in an echoey place and sing just nothing but with other people. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not a song, it's just singing. It felt almost like a spiritual experience. It was really, really lovely. I loved it.
Yeah, it really was. And how it sort of developed and grew, because I don't even really remember what the opening conversation, you know, what was it? Just open your mouth and let a sound come out, or something very simple? I think it was. I think it's
just open your mouth, sing a note, take a breath, sing another note, and just keep it going.
And it lasted for so long, didn't it?
You really get lost in the moment as well. I think that's what I like about the play, is like time seems to disappear, and you kind of get into the mindset of like, this must be what it's like for a child playing. So, you know, if you think about it as a professional development thing, as a training thing, what are the values, do you think, of doing that, you know, for you in your professional development, for doing that kind of training? I think it's really, really good for kind of getting in the mindset of the child and putting yourself in their perspective, in terms of like how they might feel about an activity, or like what they might immediately go for, or like how quick it might take them to get bored of it, and just putting yourself in their situation. That really helps with that, I think.
And how has it made any difference to your practice at all?
Yeah, I think so. I think when I'm planning an activity, I'm thinking more about how the child might take it, rather than like, I try not to make it too complicated now, or have like a specific outcome, because I know that the children probably aren't going to be aiming for the same thing, and they'll all be trying to get something different out of it. So I try to keep it a bit more open, I suppose.
Yeah. And have you tried anything in the bandstand based on any of the, I mean, how's that been going? Yeah.
I tried after the first play day. What I found really interesting was the sound massage we did with the different objects. And I thought this would be really interesting to try with some of the children. So I kind of just like laid out a few of the objects, and just like with the children, like explore the different sounds of them. And they were like really interested, because they'd never thought about scraping a stick against a bit of bark before. And they really loved it. It was great. And it just goes to show that you don't need like instruments, that you can just find things.
So what kinds of, can you describe what things you put out for them to have a play with?
I just went in the art room and I rummaged around. I found some tin foil and some bits of plastic and just some paper that you could rip. They really liked the ripping sound of the paper. I think they just liked ripping paper, but the sound was really interesting too. Sticks and stones and buttons, and like a glass jar to like shake things around in. Just loads of things. I feel like it's something that you can really like rotate what you're using each time to keep it fresh.
And how did you set it up? Was there a certain number, or could they just come in and play for themselves, or did they work with a partner? How did it work?
There's kind of like, it's really a free flow garden. So I just I kind of just laid it all out in lines, and just kind of watched as they came and like pick things up. And I didn't really know like what to do with them, so I kind of experimented with like making noises next to their ears so they could hear it, and then they're kind of like, oh, I see what we're doing. And then they started to kind of create their own sounds that I hadn't even really thought of, which was interesting. Like, trying to think of an example, like tapping on the actual bandstand itself, and dropping stones like down the holes in the flat stand and things like that. Yeah,
they're so full of fantastic ideas, aren't they?
They are. Yeah, it really takes me by surprise sometimes.
Yeah,
like
and if you've got a prescribed learning thing and they do something different, well, they will always do something different, won't they?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's another thing I've learned. It's like you can't plan for what's going to happen, especially with creative things, because creativity is so it can be different for everyone. So they're not gonna, like, you could say, oh, let's paint a picture of a tree, but they're not gonna paint a picture of a tree unless they really want to paint a picture of a tree. Like, you can set out all the right colors for them, they'll want to use what colors they want to use, and make what they want to make. So I think that's one thing I've learned, to not limit them with what I offer them, I suppose.
Yeah. So will you do you think you'll try that activity again, or will you try something else, or what?
Yeah, I think so. I think next time I'll try it we've got like a little sensory space in the year, and I think that might be like a really good activity to do with a smaller group of children, away from the noise of the garden, where they can just kind of sit and like focus on it. And I'd like to try it with some of the more like non-verbal children, because I feel like they'd like gain a lot from that.
It's quite focused listening in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And there's a lot going on in the garden. I think it would be good to kind of take them away from that, so there's less kind of distractions and they can focus on the sound a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And what has it been like for you? Because I know that, on the Germination project, there's early childhood practitioners and there are the artist mentees, and you've been working with a mentor. How has that been? How have you found that?
It's been really nice to kind of work with people who aren't used to working in settings, and who are able to just kind of go in there and do the thing that they're there to do, and not have to worry about, that child's running over there, well, I've got to go do an appy now. It's been nice to like see them being able to completely focus on that, and they obviously like know their stuff. So, and some of the things, like one of the people I worked with created some really nice things just out of stuff from rubbish bins and brought it in, and the children reacted so nicely to it. It was like, it's really inspiring, like, to think of what we can make out of anything really. Like, anything can be a provocation. It's great to see that in practice.
Yeah, and what's been so lovely. I mean, because I came on the first day, and then I came on the final play day, and all this stuff has happened in between, and just to hear, everyone sharing from their own perspective was just so. I found that so enlightening, really, that you were able to share very clearly about early childhood practice, and the artists seemed to be able to share very clearly about their art experience. And I don't know, it felt very rich to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like a huge range of experiences all come together to like make a really, really amazing project. In the end, it was really great. I'm really sad it's over.
I know. Yeah. And have there been any challenges for you in work, being part of the project? Have there been any things that have been challenging in any way?
I suppose some things were quite. There's this whole thing about awkwardness and getting over the awkwardness. We discussed it a lot. Like, this is probably going to be awkward, but you need to get over that. So I think that's the only thing for me, was it's like kind of stepping out of my comfort zone a little bit in front of loads of people I didn't know. And doing all these strange movements and just like trying not to be really self-conscious about it. But yeah, I think that's about it. Like, that's the only kind of challenge that there was. I think all the rest of it was just like really nice and easygoing, and even though that was difficult, everyone was in the same boat, and everyone was so friendly and non-judgmental and welcoming, that we were there to do that kind of thing, So
yeah, exactly.
It was kind of getting out of your own head. That was the issue.
Yeah.
By the last session, I was so much more comfortable than the first one. I think just because I knew what we were doing, and
you knew everyone, I guess, and everybody knew you. Yeah. Yeah.
And at first, when I didn't know what to expect at all, so
Exactly.
I didn't kind of prepare myself for it. But yeah.
And if you thought you were coming to do nursery rhymes, it was quite different to that. So that must have been quite a shock, quite a shock to sit down and have, you know, the sort of sound massage with small items sort of around your head. That's not exactly nursery rhymes, is it? Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And what about visiting? Because you visited Baby Sound Garden as well. How was that?
That was really nice for me because I don't get to really work with the babies where I am at the moment. Although I might try and do a bit more because I really enjoy doing just that session with the babies, and because they react to things completely differently to the children in the ward garden. They don't have like the speech, and they don't have the well, even the same like movement as the children I work with. So it was nice to see how they experience sound and music as opposed to the 2 or 3 year olds that I normally work with.
So do you think, you know, have you got plans for, like, you know, how you might develop this for your practice in the next few months or then over the next year?
I think so, yeah. I'd really like to get more involved in just music across the whole nursery, not just the walled garden, but also the explorers and the baby room as well. Maybe start doing kind of weekly sessions or something. Maybe getting more, involving more like singing and sound and things, and just in the everyday running of the nursery. We have like a mindfulness in the morning. It'd be nice if we could do a bit more like singing and things, because I feel like children learn quite a lot through song. And just continuing to take that inspiration and use it in my provocations in my area as well and around the garden, and thinking about sound, because it's not just music. It can be like children banging on a barrel in the loose parts, or you know, like just thinking, maybe getting the rest of the staff to think about the sound, like the sonic experience of activities, not just the physical experience of them. I think, and what they can learn from that, and the enjoyment they can get from that as well.
Yeah, well, that sounds really exciting. So it's mindfulness and soundfulness.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah. What would you say to somebody who, you know, had never done the training and you know, was just interested? What would you say to somebody who was asking about playing together as a training model for early years educators?
I think it's like a really nice kind of hands-on way to learn. Like, you're not sitting down listening to someone talk at you, taking notes. Like, you're in that moment, you're doing it. Again, putting yourself in the mindset of the child. Like, it's a really nice way to learn something, and it's really good for like building bonds with people and feeling kind of comfortable in a group as well. Because you're all doing this thing together and you're all connecting, and because you had the artists and you had the practitioners, and in a way that you could feel like really separate and different from them, but because you're all taking part in the same thing, I think it really brings the group together.
And you know what, if you're thinking about working creatively with young children, have you got any advice to anyone listening to this about, you know, where to start, or what works, or, you know, what would be a good place to start, do you think?
I'd say just observe the children, maybe take into account some of their interests, or just like get out a random object that they've never seen before and throw it in front of them and see what they do with it, because they will come up with something, and they always do. And again, like, don't limit yourself or the children by giving it an outcome. Like, just leave it open, and it's very easy when you think about it. Like, I think we tend to overcomplicate things as adults because we think, oh, it's got to have like a structure. But I think just put something in front of them as interesting, and they will just be creative with it, because they're creative people, you know. Like, they don't have like the societal pressures, I suppose, that we have to make things. They just do what they want to do, and that's, I guess that would be my advice. Just don't worry too much about it.
Yeah, I mean, I love that idea. That's so brilliant. So you sort of find an object and put it in front of them and see what they do, and then what would you do next?
You could, I suppose, build games off of it. You could suggest other activities they could do. You could bring other objects that are linked to that object. I'm not sure. It all depends on like what you start off with, but there's so many places to kind of go from there. I think a lot of it is about observing the children and what they seem to be particularly interested in, how you can kind of further their development through what they enjoy doing and what you think that they might do.
Yeah, and you're drawing on so much knowledge and experience there. You know, it's you know, your practice is so, I think, deep and reflective and knowledgeable, so that you probably will have a whole bank of things that you would build on. And even observing children can be quite hard, can't it? First, if you've not done it before.
Definitely, it's difficult not to step in and be like, no, you're doing that wrong, because they're not doing it wrong. I think that's the thing we need to remember as well. Like, then they're doing it how they think it's supposed to be done, and that's not wrong, as long as they're getting something from it.
Has there been a highlight? Was the highlight the stairwell singing? Was that
I think so. That really stuck with me. I think that was just something that I was just getting to do, things that I never would have been able to do unless I'd done the project. Like, just to play in a group of adults is something you'd never be able to do unless you were doing a project which was about playing.
Yeah.
So I've been like really thankful for that. I think just the play days themselves have been really great.
Do you think they would you recommend your peers, the people you work with, to do something similar? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. I'm not sure they'd have the confidence to do it, but
do you think you have to be a special sort of or a particular sort of person?
I mean, I did a lot of like drama in school, and I think it felt a bit like that, so I can see how maybe some of the activities might be quite difficult, even more difficult for people to step out of their comfort zones, because they never would have done anything like that ever before. And yeah, I think like for adults to go back into that play kind of state of mind is quite difficult, because we're just told to be serious all the time.
Yeah.
So it's just like undoing all of that almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how have you felt at the end of the play days?
Tired. But also like it's quite therapeutic, so
yeah,
like tired but then also relaxed. Like you wouldn't think you'd be so exhausted from just like playing all day, but I suppose that's like kind of shows why children get tired so quickly. As well. It takes quite a lot of effort to play almost.
Well, we're kind of thinking differently, aren't we, as you so rightly said? So it's kind of we're moving into some different area, and I think it's sort of exercising that area for ourselves. I agree with you. I felt tired, but strangely kind of elated. I don't know myself. Just sort of light, but as you say, also tired. And I think it is a different kind of brain work or something. Thank you so much, Hope. It's been absolutely brilliant to talk to you, and also lovely to have met you as part of the project. So I hope you really get to put all these things into action over the course of the next few years, and look forward to seeing you again sometime.